This video is going to attempt to do two things. First of all, I'm going to try to redefine the blue wall in the US. And second of all, I'm going to try to define what the Red Sea should be. So the blue wall in the US, you have states like California, Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania were in the blue wall but voted for Trump twice. And Hawaii. And again, well, a blue wall state has voted Democrat in every election since '92. So, you look at presidential elections in the U.S. and you go through 2024, 2020, 2016, 2012, 2008, 2004, 2000, 1986, 1982, and again, any state that shows up as being blue in all those elections, some of them even voted blue in 1988, but not all of them did, but you had to since 1982 to be in the blue wall. And in 2016, we see Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania go for Trump by very narrow margins, but Trump still wins these states, which are decisive to his victory. And in 2024, again, they're the closest states in the election. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, though, go for Trump again. So when you look at the blue wall, now you're looking at California, Washington, Oregon, Hawaii, Minnesota, Illinois, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine, but not the 2nd District. Because they don't want to put Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan in the blue wall yet when they have, shown that they have a non-reliably blue. And Maine 2nd District is much more Republican than those, even though it also was Democrat since 1986. In 1982, actually. So you have these states now as a blue wall. But here's the thing. The blue wall gives Democrats 190 electoral votes. 190 electoral votes that go reliably Democrat. Again, formerly you had Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, as well as Maine 2nd District in the mix, which would give Democrats 235 votes. But you can't really call them part of the blue wall anymore. Especially with 2016 now proving to not be a fluke. And there are other states that, looking at this Wikipedia article, generally, you vote blue and had one breach and are more part of the blue wall. So, like, Virginia and Colorado are two states that broke for Obama and now reliably Democrat. And New Mexico and New Hampshire only voted once in favor of the Republicans. So, that's the thing I want to draw out to. First, we're going to look at New Hampshire and New Mexico. So New Hampshire voted for Bush over Gore by 1.3 points. If Gore wins New Hampshire, Florida is irrelevant, and he wins the election. So Bush wins New Hampshire, which proves decisive. But other than that, New Hampshire has been all Democrat. And I truly mean it, like all Democrat since 2000. And Clinton might have only barely won the state in 2016, but you still won it. New Mexico, on the other hand, pretty solid, but it's very close for Gore, and then Bush flips it in 2004 by 0.8%. After that, though, it's all Democrat in New Mexico. It's never even really that close. So I think we could put New Hampshire and New Mexico in the blue wall. Now, New Hampshire is interesting because they actually have a Republican trifecta at a statewide level, yet always consistently vote Democrat. And again, looking at Virginia and Colorado might have voted red in 96, and then 2000 and 2004. And Virginia also in 1992 voted Republican as it was a consistent red state, since Johnson's landslide in 1964. But in 2008, the state broke for Obama in a big way in both of these states, and they've since never returned back to Democrats. Harris convincingly won Virginia. She really just blew Trump out in Colorado, even in a loss. So I think that these states can really be part of the blue wall now, which puts the Democrat at 222 reliable electoral college votes. Another thing you need to know here is Iowa. Because Iowa, in 1988, 1992, 1996, voted Democrat convincingly. And in 2000, it only narrowly voted for Democrats. Bush flips in 2004, but only by 0.67%. Then it goes back to voting for Obama by big margins twice. But then Trump wins the state by 9 points in 2016. Wins it again in 2020. And 2024, he wins it by 13 points. So Iowa was maybe a former member of the blue wall, but definitely not anymore. And again, the warning signs for Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania were there. Look at how close Wisconsin was in 2000 and 2004. It was, both times within 0.5%. In 2004, Michigan and Pennsylvania were close. I'm not saying that should, be the only factor looked at, because Oregon was close for Bush both times. But, there were warning signs there that these states may not be as reliable for the Democrats as they had hoped. And this is sort of really where I think your blue wall stands right now. And now for the red city. You have these states. The darkest shade are states that have not voted for a Democrat since Johnson's landslide, 1964. So, this is Idaho, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Nebraska, except for the 2nd District. This is Kansas. This is Oklahoma. And then you have your states that were Democrat since 1976 in the Deep South. This is Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina. Then you have, since 1992, states that have voted consistently Republican, and this is Montana. And since 2000, you had a lot of states. You had Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So you had these states in as well. And I had 141 reliable electoral college votes for Republicans. And I received 144 because I was an idiot and forgot to color in Alaska. Then you have Indiana, North Carolina since 2012, and Florida, Ohio, and Iowa since 2016, which you could put down all of these and then get Republicans to 224 safe electoral college votes. And actually what you do is in 228. But I'm going to hold off on that thought for a few reasons. So put it back down to 148. And the reason why I'm reluctant is because that would only be a few elections. For at most. Now, there are some things I am going to note. First of all, with states such as Indiana, 2008 was a fluke. I know it was a Democratic landslide, but it was also just a fluke how it even broke for Obama in the first place. He won it by 1%, when a tipping point state was 9. So, barely votes blue. And look at Indiana since before, 64. It's always voting in big ways for Republicans. And it wasn't even ever close, besides 2008. So Indiana, I'm fine putting on a red wall. And now I got 159 electoral votes in the red wall. Oh, and I forgot Utah. So 165. But the thing about North Carolina is that, sure, it also was since 1976, except in 2008. In 2008, it was even narrower than Indiana by 2/3 of a percentage point. But here's the problem with it. So North Carolina was reliably red, since 1980. As you can see. But it had some close elections in there in the 90s. And then after it broke for Obama and then went back to the Republican column, look, 2%, 4%, 1%, 3%. It's always close. It's always close. So I don't know if I feel comfortable in North Carolina in the red wall, whereas even though it always goes Republican, it also always goes close. Also, note how Nebraska's 2nd congressional district has now voted for 2 elections in a row for the Democrats, and how even when it was voting for the Republicans, it was generally closer. 2008, it also goes blue, so it's not a part of the blue wall, unlike the rest of Nebraska. And Florida, Ohio, and Iowa. Looking at 2016, Iowa and Ohio are landslides of Trump, but Florida isn't. 2020, Florida's just red, and Iowa and Ohio now up a bit. 2020, they all won by double digits, but I'm not comfortable calling them safe red states yet. Florida especially, I think that it might just be a positive response to Trump, and same in Iowa and Ohio. I'm not comfortable really putting them in the red wall yet. But if you really wanted to, you could. And then put the Republicans at 218. Which really sort of, again, leaves these 7 states and districts as where your battlegrounds are. Now, we look at a map of red states and blue states. And the same way that, Trump broke through the blue wall, Biden broke through the red wall, because formerly Arizona and Georgia were in this column too. And now they're not, the swing states again. Because, look, 2020, they both narrowly go for Biden. Look at how long they were consistently voting Republican for. They were both consistently voting Republican, since 1996 for Arizona and 1982 for Georgia. And even those elections, like, were the first, Georgia consistently was voting what was sort of mixed between before that. They both were Republican in 1964, and they both go for Democrats in 2020. So, that was odd. In fact, Biden only had the second victory in Arizona since 1948 when the state went for Truman. Wow. Anyway, those are your red states and blue states. I hope you enjoyed.